You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You're listening to us on CBS Radio, WJFK, 1580 AM, or you visiting us at WMCLive.com for this and for any of our previous episodes. Look for WMC Live on Facebook and on Twitter, and you can now stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast worldwide anytime at iTunes. Today is, of course, March 8th, International Women's Day. So we go round the world in 60 minutes. We start with a pageant beauty queen from Japan who found her courage and turned into a feminist activist. Then we visit with one of the mothers of the global women's movement, who's also the voice of Caribbean feminism. Then an exclusive interview with Nobel Peace Prize winner Leymah Gbowee of Liberia. And last, with the artist-activist who has all of Spain protesting creatively against pending anti-abortion legislation. What a quartet of grand women. But first, we need to look inside the headlines. Inside the headlines this week is quite short because, in a sense, this entire program is inside the headlines. It consists this week of just two factoids. One you may have heard before, but it's this time disaggregated by gender. If the world were a village and its population comprised of 100 people based on existing ratios, this is who and how they'd be. 53 would be female, 58 would be under age 25, 70 would be people of color, 70 would be non-Christian, 58 would be Asian or Pacific Islanders, 21 would be Africans, 21 would be Europeans, of which 14 would be Americans, South and North. Of the 100, 80 would live in poverty-level housing, 70, 50 of whom would be female, would be illiterate, 50 would be starving or malnourished, 6 would own 59% of all the wealth, and all 6 would be from the United States. 1 would own a computer, and 1 would have a college education, both from the United States. And then this other quote, which you may have heard before and definitely bears remembering. While women represent half the global population and 1/3 of the labor force, they receive only 1/10 of the world income and own less than 1% of world property. They also are responsible for 2/3 of all working hours. That's the fact. And the bad news. The good news are the women who follow in this program. My first guest is Ikumi Yoshimatsu. She is a 26-year-old actor and beauty queen from Japan, turned activist. Her English is somewhat halting at times. It's newly acquired, but nonetheless it's admirable, as is her courage. Ikumi, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for having me here.
Well, you're a very special beauty queen. It is unusual and it's admirable for a beauty queen title holder to become an activist, and a feminist. How does that feel?
Yeah, it is unusual for a title holder to become an activist, but I believe every title holder has responsibility to being an activist and to support women, of course. So especially in countries where the pageant title holders are very respected and are considered national heroes. That's what I think.
And Japan is one of those countries. You
Yes.
you were crowned Miss International in 2012, and you were a victim of stalking and of intimidation and of blackmail by a Japanese talent executive. This is a frightening story that you met with great bravery. Tell us what happened.
Okay. First of all, it's important to know that most of the Japanese entertainment industry is controlled by mafia. I mean, Yakuza. And once women become popular, they try to control their rights, but I refused to be associated with them. So then they started to stalk me, intimidate me, and threaten people around me. My tormentor is a very, very dangerous man. People say that he has killed several women by murder or forcing them into suicide.
Wow.
And what he did was he called my family many times, saying that I would wind up dead like another woman who refused him. He blackmailed and intimidated my family and planted scandals in the tabloids because I refused to sell myself to his Yakuza-controlled talent agency.
Oh, I see.
So he tried to abduct me from a TV studio, send stalkers to my house, and threaten companies who wanted to use me for TV commercials. I was afraid for my life. When I went to the police for protection, I gave them tape recordings, photographs, and videos of everything he has done. And I told them that I don't want to die.
Yeah.
But they refused to protect me and even told me that I should just join his agency if I want to work in this industry and avoid trouble. Then I was called into the Miss International office, and in a taped conversation, I was informed that my tormentor has been personally making relentless, threatening phone calls to the main sponsors of Miss International and threatening to release suspicious stories in the tabloid press should I be allowed on the stage. So Miss International responded to his threats by instructing me to play sick, keep quiet, and not attend the world final pageant to pass my crown to my successor. And I had worked tirelessly over the past year at my crown. I had worked tirelessly over the past year at my own expense to fulfill my obligation as a role model and the first Japanese ever to wear the Miss International crown. I used this platform effectively to help women, children, and communities all over the world. I kept silent about the torment, extortion, and threat and intimidation by this guy, not wanting to allow the likes of him to taint this important mission and title. And I also realized my obligation to speak out on behalf of all the women who cannot, by naming my tormentor in public. But it would be irresponsible for me to call on the women of Japan to raise their voices when they are in such fear, without first calling on the government of Japan to enact laws that give real protection to women. So Japan needs strict anti-stalking laws and other laws that actually punish perpetrators of crime against women. We need protection by police and restraining orders granted by the courts for any woman who has been threatened, is being stalked, or is in fear of being harmed before she's actually harmed, murdered, or forced to commit suicide. Without protecting women, we will never enjoy the economic and moral benefits of a truly equal society. I made a public promise to every woman who voiced the support and share their stories with me. Even though we may live with fear, we can also live with purpose. I will not play sick. I will not keep silent. And I will not appease my tormentor. And that's when I made the Stalker Zero campaign on Change.org, a petition demanding police protection for women and new strict anti-stalking laws in Japan. We need to end the culture of silence toward crime against women.
Wow. Well, that is some story, Ikumi. How is the Change.org petition doing? How many signatures have been collected? And what has happened? What else has happened as a result of the petition so far?
My petition, Change.org, has broken all the records for Japan.
Wow.
Thank you. And collected more than 130,000 signatures so far. But for me, more powerful than the signatures are the message and personal stories from people all over the world who have signed it. When I studied about people like you, Robin, and what you went through, and read the stories from so many people, it inspires me to continue the fight against apartheid against women, not only in Japan, but in other parts of the world too. And I think the most people are shocked and surprised to know about the real situation in Japan. We are one of the biggest global economies and maybe the most modern country in the world. But crimes against women are still ignored, and many women still live in fear.
Yes. Your petition campaign also asks that Carolyn Kennedy, who is now the new U.S. ambassador to Japan, ask her to speak out. Have you heard from Ambassador Kennedy yet?
The American embassy in Japan has been very, very helpful and supportive. I am hoping that Ambassador Kennedy will take a more vocal role in supporting in this campaign. It's unthinkable that women in Japan have no protection and are still not treated equally in society.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, women aren't treated equally all over the world. But when I was in Japan, I must say I was shocked at the intensity of the patriarchy and the strong, terrific women's movement that was fighting it. But yeah, it's pretty entrenched there. So how can women help? Obviously with the petition, but tell us how they can sign on to the petition.
Go to change.org and enter my name, Ikumi, Ikumi, and not only sign the petition, but please share your voice and commenting. Share your story and sharing this campaign with everyone you know.
That, for my listeners, it's change.org, and you enter the name Ikumi, Ikumi, and sign the petition and share your voice and your stories, and build on this, because this is something we can do for each other. There is a cross-national, huge, active women's movement now, and there's no stopping us. Oh, Ikumi, what is next for you? What do you plan to do next?
Of course, I keep continuing as activist, and also acting here in America.
Good. Oh, you're going to be you're going to move here to get away from the Yakuza?
Yes.
Okay, that's
because protection. And then also I want to say, please come back to Japan. We need you, Robin.
Well, I'll come back when it's safe for you to come back, and then we'll go together.
Oh.
How can people find you? Is there a website?
Yes, you can. I have my official Facebook and also official homepage. You can Google it. Just Ikumi Yoshimatsu, just IKUMI.
Okay, that's www.ikumiyoshimatsu.com. Arigato gozaimasu, Imoto-san. Imoto-san?
Thank you so much.
Is Imoto-san correct?
Yes, correct.
Younger, I just said thank you, my younger sister. So
yeah, I know. Thank you so much. Thank you, my sister.
It's time for a quick break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back in just a minute with one of the great elders of the global women's movement, who, with all her wisdom, brings news of what young women are doing in the Caribbean. Don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome back. My next guest, Dr. Peggy Antrobus, is a force majeure locally in her native Grenada and in Jamaica, where she headed the Women's Bureau, and regionally as a founding member of the Caribbean Association of Feminist Action and Research, and internationally as a teacher, as a presence, and as an expert on women and development. You can mention her name almost anywhere in the global women's movement, and the reaction will be one of respect verging on reverence. And I'm honored that she's my friend and that she's with us today on the program. Dear Peggy, dear friend of many a conference and many a travel, welcome to the program.
And thanks, Robin, for being in touch with me.
When did we meet? And it was a long time ago.
I don't know exactly, but I certainly know it was within the framework of that decade for women. So it was 74 or 75. I remember you contacted me about contributing to your book, Sisterhood is Global. Do you remember that?
Of course I do.
Yeah, and it was the very first time that I'd ever had anything published, that I ever wrote anything.
Was it?
Yes.
Now that I didn't know.
Robin, you were one of the very first North American women, I should say white North American women, feminists, that had an interest in the South. Did you know that? Very, very few.
There should have been many. There are more now.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's one of the big changes.
Yes. You know, you were one of those names that when I was networking around for someone to write about the Caribbean, and in general about women in the global South, your name came up again and again and again. And of course, as I got to know you, I began to realize why. Because over the years, you were creating these major institutions, whether it was Caribbean Association of, wasn't it Feminist Action and Research? CAFRA.
Yeah, CAFRA,
Yeah, and then DAWN, Development Alternatives with Women for a New Era.
New era.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're still going.
Oh, yes. I've just finished writing a chapter about them for a handbook, you know.
Very good. You're writing more now. I'm so honored to have been the first time that you wrote anything.
Yes. You know, Robin, I have to say that you have to believe in destiny. You know, I don't think that things are by chance. I really do believe in destiny, because in 1974, when I first got involved in working on women's rights, that was the eve of International Women's Year. I was looking for a part-time job. You know, I wasn't. I never heard the word feminist. I was looking for a part-time job, something that I could do combined with being a devoted wife and mother. Can you believe that?
My God. Well, I can, because I think many of us of that generation came that same route.
Yeah.
You know.
But it just changed. Doing that work just changed my whole life.
Yes, of course it did. What are you doing now?
Well, you know, I'm now 78 this year.
Well, that's no excuse for anything.
As far as I'm concerned, you never stop working. If you're an activist, you don't retire.
Yes, there's no retiring for activism.
But I retired from paid employment. That's what I see. Since 1995. Yes, I've been out of that kind of...
But you still teach. And
I teach mostly recently. I've been teaching online, which is fascinating.
It's pretty damn modern of you.
Yes, I think of myself as technologically challenged, but I believe in the technology. I mean, I think it offers incredible opportunities. I know it's one of the things I reflect on when I think of what's changed and the new opportunities. I think the technology is a huge piece of that.
It is, and when people say, older people say that they're worried, they don't see a young feminism, where are the young feminists? First of all, they're not looking in the global south, and second of all, they're not looking online anywhere.
Well,
because
they're all online. In the Caribbean, they're all online. The most exciting things are there online.
Tell me about it. What's
going on?
There
are a number of young feminists organizing. They have blogs, and they're creating these networks. Incredible creativity. You know, the young feminists in the Caribbean are certainly using the ICTs, and but they're also doing things on the ground. They're dealing with issues of, well, what I would call traditional women's issues, and I have to come back to that. They're certainly dealing with issues of violence, sexuality. That is the most exciting thing, Robin. They're not inhibited in discussing these things anymore, and of course, that I consider that as a source of power, of empowerment. You know?
Absolutely right. That's absolutely.
I don't know if I ever told you the story about working with a group of grassroots women, a little workshop in a village in the Caribbean. We're talking about empowerment. Of course, the word empowerment is also new. We didn't have that word in 1975.
That's right.
And I was doing this workshop with another Caribbean feminist, a woman called Joan French. And as we were talking with the women, and they were talking to us, and Joan said to me, "Peggy, do you hear what those women are saying?" She says they're talking about sexuality and spirituality as sources of power.
They're absolutely right.
Not talking about having sex. They consider having sex can be disempowering. And they're not talking about religion. They think that religion can be oppressive. They're talking about sexuality as who we are, being in touch with ourselves and claiming our agency, and spirituality, that we are spiritual beings, and those are incredibly empowering.
They are.
And then after that, I read Audre Lorde, and you know, it's one of the things that I really believe is a really important source of power for women.
It is, and if you're not in your own body,
right,
then you know, where are you? It's like colonization. You're
and in your own spirit.
Yeah, and in your own spirit, precisely.
I want to say something about, I sort of said women's issues. I want to say something about that, because one of the things that really changed my analysis was my involvement with the Dawn Network, Development Alternatives. And what that Dawn Network, they were quite revolutionary. I think they changed the whole discourse on women and development, you know.
But one of the things that Dawn did to veer back to your the point I think you were going toward is that all issues are women's issues. I mean, there's no such thing as a women's issue. We're the majority of people on the planet, so how can, give me a break.
But more specifically, Robin, I think Dawn made the point that you cannot separate gender justice from economic justice, from ecological justice.
That's right.
Dawn's analysis was a holistic analysis.
That's correct.
Not only linking the political, the economic, the social, the cultural, and ecological, but also making the link between women's lived experience on the ground and the larger macroeconomic framework.
Yes, yes.
And I think that was huge. I mean, that had not been done before.
No, it had not been done before, and it was seismic. I mean, because once those connections are made, they can't be unmade in your mind.
This is what I'm saying. I'm not sure about that, Robin. I mean, every now and then, including the incredible work that the feminists in the Caribbean are doing, the economic justice thing keeps dropping out. And the ecological justice. I mean, this is the Caribbean, this is climate change, it's going to change everything. We're in crisis.
Yes.
Our economies are in collapse. And you cannot talk about women's lives without looking at those economic and ecological realities.
That's
and
right.
They do. And a lot of the blogs don't deal with those issues, you know? So They don't view
Well,
the
there have to
systemic
the connections have to be made because
Yeah.
women suffer first and worst from environmental pollution and from economic disadvantage, and yet
Absolutely.
we're the last and least consulted when it comes to the
Yeah.
solutions. You know,
Yeah,
so that has to
absolutely.
change.
But it's an ongoing struggle. Huh? It's an
It
ongoing
is.
struggle because the new generation of feminists lose that. Even though Dawn is trying very hard, Dawn has these training institutes.
Yes.
I don't know if you know about them, but these have been going on since the end of the early 2000s, and they bring together young people under 25 from all the regions of the South. And what the institutes are about is really giving them the analysis, helping them to do that kind of analysis that links gender justice to economic and ecological justice.
Yes.
And
Yes.
political, of course.
Yes, they're
And,
inseparable.
And they also train them in advocacy. So you will find them at the UN doing these global negotiations, and that's fine. But I find that too often, if Dawn people are not there, people are not dealing with economic issues.
I see.
You see, like the economic crisis, or you have like the Occupy movement. I mean, they're talking about inequality, but where is the feminist analysis?
Yeah, they don't have the feminists. No,
Or the Arab Spring, which is talking about political justice, but where is the feminist analysis in that?
well, the women have been trying, but they're not being heard. They're not being listened to. So yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not the kind of change that can be accomplished piecemeal. It has to have a holistic vision, which you always have had.
Yeah.
Oh, Peggy, I could talk for hours, and we have for decades over the years, but our time is up, unfortunately. Yes. I'm so grateful to you for coming and bestowing the love and the warmth of your presence on the program. It really means a great deal to me.
Oh, Robin, I'm grateful to you because at this stage of my life, I mean, there's nothing more wonderful than sharing my experiences and talking to people like you.
Oh, well, you are a legend in your time, and also not pompous and a great deal of fun.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
We have to take another quick break here. I'm Robin Morgan, and this is Women's Media Center Live. When we return, we'll hear an exclusive interview with Nobel Peace Prize winner Leymah Gbowee of Liberia on what women are doing to survive in Congo and other conflict zones and failed states of Africa.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
Welcome back again. Leymah Gbowee won the 2011 Nobel Peace Prize for her work in leading a women's peace movement that brought to an end the Second Liberian Civil War in 2003. Lauren Wolfe is an award-winning journalist and the director of the Women's Media Center's Women Under Siege, a journalism project on sexualized violence in conflict. Lauren is a member of the advisory committee of the Nobel Women's Initiative, which of course Leymah is a part of, and they were both recently in the Democratic Republic of the Congo because the Nobel Women's Initiatives was on a fact-finding mission on part of their international campaign to stop rape and gender violence in conflict. At our request, Lauren taped this special conversation as an exclusive interview with Leymah for Women's Media Center Live.
Hi, I'm here in Bukavu in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo with Nobel Peace Prize laureate Leymah Gbowee. Hi, Leymah.
Hi, Laurie.
Can you tell me a little bit about why we're here and what you've been seeing?
We were part of the Nobel Women's Initiative delegation, and as part of the international campaign to end rape and sexual violence. Usually we do these delegations annually to different parts of the world. This year is DR Congo and Eastern DR Congo because of the reports that had been coming out of Congo that this is the rape capital of the world. We came to identify women's groups that are doing work around ending sexual violence, and to also give them solidarity messages, because usually it's difficult when you work in such situations to be doing it. It always feels alone, and it's good to always have people come and kind of reaffirm what you're doing. Since we've been here, we've seen and heard a lot stories of rape and abuse in different forms and fashions, from militia groups to school teachers to mining areas. The stories have just been kind of reaffirming what people have, the reports that have been coming out of here. What is also striking for me is that when people talk about Congo, they talk about Congo in the post-conflict terms. M23 and the government, the general assumption is that, you know, the biggest problem of DR Congo was M23. And coming here, we've just realized, no, we were in the Oriental province, and we realized that we were in the middle of an active conflict zone. I had been engaging with some local groups and talking with some women. Why don't you work in the Oriental province? It's not safe. So,
and the Oriental province, we found out once we were here, is the size of Spain. So when you're looking at an area that large, there are so many militias at play, and we're hearing about violence from the Congolese army itself against women, and even the rise of rape among civilians. So what stories have you heard that have really maybe changed the way that you're thinking about this, that you think it would be really important for people to be hearing about?
Well, first thing, I take back many lessons. I take back stories, not just of the pains, but first, one of the stories that I heard and saw, the image that really just made me sad, was the story I heard from the doctors, of the human rights doctors, about a girl that they found when they were on their patrol. She had been repeatedly raped and was left for dead on the roadside. She had scars on her hands that indicated that she had been in detention or tied up, and then one of her hands was burned, and she was stabbed in her face and on her thighs, and she was so thin, she was about 20 kilograms. They assumed she was between 10 and 12. When they finally have worked with her for several weeks and put her on a nutritional thing, they realize she's between 16 and 18 years old. She's in a wheelchair. She still can't walk. You see those images and it's stuck with you. You especially for those of us who have many children, especially daughters. And then for me as a survivor of war, it's like I'm having flashbacks of times in Liberia. But the one ray of hope I take out of DR Eastern Congo is the ability or the strength of the women. Through all of the stories that has been told us, in the middle of those stories, you always hear, and the women came, and my sister came, and my mother came, and this women association heard, and they came. The level of sisterhood and solidarity that these women have been able to really pull through is something that I mean, for me, is the icing that I take out of this very difficult situation.
With such horror stories that we hear in this region, you know, from Rwanda to Congo over the last 20 years, it's just been a nightmare. And being here, I think you really get the sense that this is just a failed state. How do you, from your experience in Liberia of such devastation, how do you think that people here can actually move forward? And is there anything that those of us sitting far away in the U.S. can do?
Well, when you look at Eastern Congo, the entire country is a very complicated place because of the multinational armed groups, the national armed groups, and its small militia groups all over the place. So in your human mind, you ask yourself, is it possible? Because if you had one or two armed groups with an agenda that we don't want this government, then you understand that there can be a peace process leading to. But the groups are so many, the agendas are so difficult. I think from the sub-regional level, there's definitely a need for governments in this region to come together and really determine that they would fight for peace and not allow armed groups from within their countries to strike back and forth. Because what you see happening is this is like a terrible disease that is spreading, and the tendency for it to spread to other countries that are peaceful is very high. There is no way that anyone can live in this region with multiple armed groups. The situation of internally displaced people is just terrible, and then you think that your country would be safe. So at that level, I think there's a serious need for intervention amongst leaders. They have to commit to peace, from Rwanda to Uganda to DR Congo to Southern Sudan. That's the first step. Within this country, the people themselves need to really see the only way for Congo as peace. Peace will have no ethnicity. Peace will have no religious affiliation. Peace will have no political alliance. Peace is what we want. I think there are a lot of things that we can do. Continue to raise our voices about the complexity of the armed conflict in Congo. Honestly, the UN needs to step up their mission here. Even from within the missions, some of the reports are not very good. If you have a system or you have a mandate that says MONUSCO is here to protect civilians, and you put in systems that civilians can call in, and you have a less than 33% response, it means they have to do a lot more. We have to push them. We also have to mobilize resources. I think the key thing for grassroots women organization in this part of the world is how limited the resources are, to the point that it's difficult, really, really difficult for them to do unbiased advocacy when they have to go to the governors and to other people to get funding. So
your experience is really mobilizing women. What do you see here that women are doing right, and what can they do to really make a change here?
One of the things that they're doing very right is their ability to forge solidarity around pain. I think where they've given up is in their ability to build peace. There is a lot of apathy around nonviolence advocacy for peace. You get women really fired up when they hear about rape and abuse, but that's it. And for me, the danger here is the way they see the conflict. Everyone has slumped to that place where they think the war is over, or they want to believe that the war is over. So when the women talk, they talk post-conflict. But if you're in post-conflict, you won't be seeing mass rapes and arms groups striking. And I think that is their way of coping with many years of intermittent fighting, until they're able to come back to that place where they see this country as a war zone. Peace will elude them.
Thank you so much, Leymah.
You're welcome, Laurie.
Time for one last break here at Women's Media Center Live, where I am still Robin Morgan. And coming up, women all over Spain are lining up by the hundreds of thousands to, wait for it, register ownership over their own bodies. Find out how and why and who's behind it in just a minute.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio.
And we're back again. The conservative government of Spain has recently been floating draconian legislation that would greatly curtail a woman's right to choose. Hundreds of thousands of women have been demonstrating against this all across Spain, using a tactic that has been adopted from an artist, a visual artist, Yolanda Domínguez, who is our next guest. Welcome, Yolanda, to Women's Media Center Live. Welcome.
Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, it's great that you are with us. Now, we'll get right to it. Given the pending legislation that wants to restrict women's reproductive rights, how did you come up with this particular idea of women registering ownership of our bodies? It's brilliant. How do they register? Where do they register? And does it hold up legally? Because it seems from the video that when they come out, they're holding their papers up for everybody to see and they're smiling.
Yes. Well, I think the female body is one of the most important aspects of feminism, a body that has always belonged to everyone but women. And I think it's a territory that women need to regain. Mm-hmm. And with this new law, we lose something else, the right to decide about our maternity. So I thought if they don't treat us as free people, but as objects on which they decide, I'm going as an object to register my body and claim my own property. It's a symbolic and subversive action that reproduces with irony the way they act.
It's marvelous.
And we went...
Yeah, go on.
And we went with a form to request that certification, and it was declared admissible. And a few days later, they replied that it was not possible to certificate the property of our body because that could mean that you can trade with it, and that will be slavery. But the women were happy to take the symbolic form of the application, and we all know that the answer is not, but we are doing a symbolic act.
Well, the irony is that if you cannot control your own body, if you don't have agency to do so, that is slavery. I mean, that is what women are in per se. You were turning it around. You know, it's like our bodies have been colonized by patriarchy, and you were reclaiming it. It's a brilliant idea. You know, you structure. This is not the first time. You structure artistic and political actions for progressive groups, primarily for women. How and when did you come to do this?
Well, for me, art is a wonderful space for social criticisms and, of course, to connect people in the same sense. I like to create experience rather than objects, and especially experience in which people can participate and be protagonists. There are many women that write me an email and ask to participate in my next action, and I always call them when I do new things.
Wow, it's like you're like a feminist conceptual artist. It's a wonderful combination. I can completely agree that art goes where nothing else goes. Art penetrates where political rhetoric cannot go. And if people can participate, you're so right. It makes all the difference in the world. There are examples of these actions on your website, some of them, and some of them are in video, and they are just brain-blowing. They're wonderful. Say the name of the website.
Yeah, it's www.yolandadominguez.com.
Okay. I urge every listener to go there and just have a real thrill. Now, one other question. This is a symbolic protest, but a very powerful one, and it's caught the public's imagination. I'm sure you know that that Univision, the Spanish international network, has taken a poll recently and of Spanish-speaking countries, and found that in Spain, as in many other places, the great majority of the public is for abortion rights. So that combined with your protest having caught the public imagination, What do you think the chances actually are realistically for stopping this right-wing legislation that is pending?
Well, I think the Spanish society has made it clear that we don't now agree with this law. And for me, such initiatives serve to express and visualize our opinion. And politicians can't ignore this. They work for us. We vote them, and they have to listen.
Well, it must make your heart sing. Those videos of women lining up to register their own bodies as their own ownership is so witty. And there are hundreds and hundreds of women. Those lines seem to stretch around the block at registry offices. And the women are smiling and they're laughing and they know exactly what they're doing. They're old, they're young, they're from all over Spain. They're in all sorts of different cities. How do you feel when you see that this aesthetic concept is working so well politically?
I'm very, very, very happy, and I didn't. I never thought my action it was going to inspire so much people, and for me, art is something that keep people together, and we find some place we can share and we can construct things together. And for me, I'm very, very, very surprised, and I'm very happy with all the women in Spain making their own version and making them the action. I'm very happy.
Well, you should be, and you deserve it. And also, I must say, Yolanda, some tactics do not translate into different cultures and different countries. This one does. And I know that there are already women in Italy who are taking it up. I think many women here are going to begin to take it up. I think it's a worldwide strategy that you have devised for the global women's movement. And for just speaking for myself, no, speaking for all of us, by God, thank you. Thank you from my heart for your creativity and your ingenuity.
Thank you so much.
I want to take just a moment here to restate Yolanda's website in case it wasn't clear. It's www.yolandadomínguez.com. That's YOLANDADOMINGUEZ. YolandaDomínguez.com. And now it's time for Fighting Words. Homosexuality already has been illegal for some time in the East African country of Uganda. But a new law imposes much harsher punishments, including life imprisonment and even, for some homosexual acts, the death penalty. Amazing, shocking, appalling, but true. The new law also requires people who know gay people to report their existence or else face imprisonment themselves. And last but hardly least, this time it includes women. Previously, women were not included in the homophobic legislation, probably because we weren't considered important enough. We were discriminated against as women per se, of course, but not specifically as lesbians. Now lesbians too can face the death penalty. The law, when a bill, when it hadn't passed yet, was already being condemned by activists and by politicians even all across the world. Heads of state begged Museveni, the president of Uganda, that not to sign it, to veto it if it did pass. But in fact, the bill passed. And in fact, President Yoweri Museveni signed it into law, commenting as he did so that these acts and these people who committed these acts were, quote, disgusting. Well, the author of the bill is Ugandan lawmaker David Bahati, who organizes the Uganda National Prayer Breakfast and who has well-documented ties to the extreme evangelical right in the United States. A year or so ago, the Political Research Associates Group published an expose on the complicity of conservative American religious groups in encouraging and fostering homophobia in Uganda. So what I want to know is that now, when the United States State Department is considering everything from sanctions against Uganda to even breaking diplomatic ties, because this is an egregious, blatant violation of human rights, this law. But what I want to know is, why are they not considering breaking diplomatic ties with the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives in the White House? Because there is one. There has been one since Reagan's day, and it has remained, with each subsequent president not wanting to be caught basically evicting it. Why should there be a White House Office of Faith-Based Initiatives? I know these are the good guys. These are the people who do community work. These are decent ministers and rabbis and whatever. But the point is, it's unconstitutional. And Jefferson and Madison would be spinning in their graves, not to speak of Ben Franklin, and Thomas Paine would be dancing a jig. So I suggest that it puts us in a better moral position to deal with Uganda, which I sure as hell think we should be dealing with, to have diplomatic warnings and censures right here at home, and get the faith-based initiative offices out of the secular White House. And that's it for this week. You've been listening to us on CBS Radio, WJFK, 1580 AM, or visiting us at WMClive.com for this and for a whole rich archive of all our previous episodes. Be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and on Twitter for early alerts to surprise upcoming guests and future shows. And find us at iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to our show's podcast. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton. Senior Producer, Crystal Williams Chancellor. And our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan. Thanks for being with us. Join us next week when we'll talk with Julie Burton about tactics for change suggested by the 2014 WMC report on the status of women in media. And you don't want to miss this. Sheryl Sandberg returns, intending to talk about a new Lean In initiative. But frankly, I have some criticism of Lean In, so I think we'll have an honest, gutsy discussion, one that you'll encounter only here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 CBS Radio and WMClive.com. Talk radio with a brain.